In the previous session, we have discussed about the lesson, the fundamental unit of life, which is nothing but the cell. Now, you know that every organism is made up of one or more cells. In this session, we will discuss about a new lesson, that is tissues. Now, in the case of a unicellular organism such as amoeba, since it has only one cell, this single cell has to perform a variety of functions. This cell has to undergo exchange of gases, it has to take oxygen from the environment, and it has to release carbon dioxide into the environment. The process of nutrition is also carried out by the single cell. The removal of waste substances, that is excretion, is carried out by the same cell, isn't it? So, in case of unicellular organisms, because only one cell has to perform all the functions, they have a very short lifespan. For example, a bacteria, it has a lifespan of around 20 to 60 minutes. By around 20 minutes, one bacterial cell will start dividing. This is because since a single cell is involved in performing variety of functions, there is lot of damage done to the cell, because of which it will soon get damaged and it will die. Whereas in the case of multicellular organisms such as fungus, plants and animals, there are what are called as tissues. In this lesson, we will be focusing only on plants and animals. So, what is a tissue? As you have studied in your lower classes, when a group of cells come together, they acquire a similar structure and they perform a same function. Such groups of similar cells performing similar function are called as tissues. For example, take in the instance of the human body. If you talk about the brain, what is brain made up of? The most important tissue present in brain is neurons or neural cells. What is the function of the neural tissue? It is to acquire the information, process the information and send back the information. Therefore, all the neural cells or neurons, they come together to perform one single function. Therefore, that is a tissue. Take for example blood. Blood is also a tissue because blood is required for transport of water. Blood is the medium in which food is transported. Blood is also the medium in which oxygen and carbon dioxide are transported in the human body. Blood is also the medium through which waste is transported. Blood is also the medium through which hormones are transported. Therefore, blood performs a lot of functions. Therefore, it is a tissue. Take for example the plant kingdom. In the plant kingdom, there are different types of tissues. Certain tissues, they provide support and structure and strength to the plants. For example, fibers in plants. You would have heard about xylem tissue and phloem tissue in class 7. You know that xylem tissue is responsible for transportation of water from the roots to the uppermost parts of the plant. Similarly, the phloem tissue is involved in transportation of food. These are all examples of tissues, and we will be discussing this in this lesson. Now, what are the uses of tissues? When similar cells they organize themselves into groups, it will create what is called as division of labor, meaning different functions are carried out by different tissues. Like we already discussed, in the human body, the nervous tissue is supposed to be working on the information processing part. The muscular tissue is responsible for movement and strength. Then blood is required for transportation and connectivity. So different functions are carried out by different groups of specialized cells called as tissues. Therefore, there is division of labor. Because of this, work is done in an effective and efficient manner. There is no stress on the human body. Take for example the case of amoeba or bacteria. The same cell has to do all the functions. That is why the lifespan is short, because the cell will get easily damaged, whereas no such stress is seen in the case of plants or animals because of the presence of tissues. So, since we are talking about tissues, let us take a look at the difference between animal tissues and plant tissues. If you look at a plant, the first thing that you notice about a plant is that it is stationary, meaning it cannot move. On the contrary, animals, they show locomotion and movement. They can move from one place to another. Because plants are sedentary or stationary, they do not require tissues which require more energy, and because they need to remain fixed in a particular position, they require tissues that offer strength and structure. That is why most of the plant tissues are dead tissues, whereas in the case of animals, most of the tissues are living tissues. The second difference between a plant tissue and an animal tissue: in plants, growth occurs at specified areas or at a specific region. What is this? If you remove the tip of any plant, of a rose plant, it will stop the growth. So certain regions of plants are responsible for growth. Take for example human beings or animals. Growth is uniform. Growth is not restricted to specific areas or specific regions of the body. If you see the case of human beings, both our hands, the limbs, they grow uniformly. Compare that with the branch in a tree. One branch is tall, one branch is short, one branch is thin, one is stout. So growth is different and growth is non-uniform, whereas in animal tissues, growth is uniform and it is not restricted to a particular specific area. Which brings us to the third important difference: plants show unlimited growth. This is because the regions of growth are present in certain locations in the plant. Till the time these growing tissues are present, they can continue to grow. A tree, once it has reached a particular amount of height, it continues to spread in space. It will still give out new branches and new twigs. Whereas in the case of animals, once they have reached a particular amount of growth, that happens at a particular age. In the case of human beings, once we reach adolescence, and at the end of adolescence, growth will also become limited, and after some time, growth will completely stop, which is not the case in plants. They have unlimited growth. Because of this, if you see, the structure of the tissues in plants and in animals are also different based on their feeding habits or other functions required. There is a lot of difference between the structures of the tissues seen in both plants and animals. That is what we will discuss in the coming sessions. So first we will start with the discussion of plant tissues. What are the different types of plant tissues? Where are these plant tissues seen? What are they called as? What do they look like? And what is their significance? What is their use in the plant body? So let's start the discussion. The plant tissues can be broadly classified under two heads: meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. Meristematic tissue. The word meristem is derived from the Latin term meristos, which means to divide. Therefore, the main function of meristematic tissue, which contains meristematic cells, is division. These are groups of cells which keep on dividing. Therefore, meristematic tissue is responsible for growth of the plant. When a seed germinates, in the beginning you will see two small tender leaves. Soon, with the right amount of water and nutrients, it starts growing in length. The shoot will start growing in length. Similarly, if you look at the roots. Now, because the only function is to divide, how do the cells look like? What is the structure of the cells that make up the meristematic tissue? The meristematic cells are generally spherical or polygonal in shape, and they have a dense cytoplasm, meaning these are rich in food. Not only that, the nucleus is large. This is because the cell is dividing. Because of that, the nucleus also needs to divide. Because it is continuously dividing, more often than not, you will find that the nucleus is large. This takes place in very short amount of time. The rapid repeated divisions. And because it is dividing continuously, the cell wall is thin. If the cell wall is thick, it will not help in division. And another important point is meristematic cells, they do not have vacuole. Vacuole is absent. Can you think of a reason why? This is because their function is to keep on dividing. They did not store any food. Storage is not required. Therefore, vacuole is absent, and that space is occupied by the large nucleus. These are the characteristic properties of meristematic cells. Let us now take a look at where are these meristematic tissues present, which are responsible for growth of the plant, and let us see in what way do they help in growth of the plant. So, based on the position of the meristematic tissues, the location of the tissue, there are three types of meristematic tissues. The first one is called as apical meristem. The word apical means apex or tip. This kind of meristematic tissue is seen in the tip of roots and tip of shoots. These cells will keep on dividing, increase the number of cells, therefore they contribute in increase stem growing in length is because of the presence of apical meristem. This is seen in the root tip and shoot tip. Apical meristem is in the tip of the stem and tip of the root. If you cut the tip of the stem, apical meristem will be removed. It will stop the growth of the aerial portion of the plant. Similarly, if you remove the tip of the root, it will stop the length of the root. The second type of meristematic tissue is called as intercalary meristem. If you look at the coconut tree or bamboo tree, you find that the stem, as you can see in the diagram, it is divided into small sections, and separating the sections you find a line. That is what is called as node. So a stem shows distinct node. The space between the two nodes is called as internode. So this region is called as the internode. And this is the shoot tip. So this is where you find the apical meristem. The intercalary meristem, inter, between, is seen above and below the node. That is in the internode region. The intercalary meristem is also responsible for increase in length of the stem. When these intercalary meristem they divide and the number of cells will increase, it will increase the length of the stem. Now, both of these tissues together are responsible for increase in length of the plant. The apical meristem and the intercalary meristem. Then there is the third type of plant tissue, which is called as lateral meristem. Lateral meaning on the sides. So lateral meristem is seen on the sides of the plant. The lateral meristem is represented by the cambium. This cambium is a tissue that is present in between the xylem and phloem. This tissue, it comes later in the development of the plant, at a later stage. When the plant is young, lateral meristem is not active. When the plant has achieved a certain amount of length, the lateral meristem starts to divide, and this is responsible for increase in the girth of the plant. That means the plant will now start increase. If the plant was this size, because of the activity of the lateral meristem, it will increase in diameter. That is what we call as the girth of the plant. Lateral meristem is seen only in dicots. It is absent in monocots. Monocots are your bamboo, rice, wheat, grasses. You don't see them growing very stout, isn't it? So they are present only in dicot plants. Together, the three types of meristematic tissues, apical meristem, intercalary meristem and lateral meristem, are responsible for increase in length of the plant and increase in the girth of the plant. The lateral meristem you find in old trees which have strong bark. The presence of a bark on the outermost covering of trees is because of this lateral meristem. Next, we will discuss about permanent tissues.